I'm back. I do apologise. I think there are gremlins in the system today, but never mind. So that was a previously a very short video. I'm not going to go over what I went through before. I think we've got a bit of a lag on Facebook today, so I'm not even sure. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I'm just going to go with it. So I'm going to hope that we're live. Please stick in the comments if you're watching live. If you're watching this as a replay, please also put hashtag replay in the comments, because it makes us see how many people are watching and whether it's worth us doing these lives as well. So I'm going to start with what even is CST and why is it so important. And I'm going to try not to lose you when I change the slide, which is what happened last time. So let's all keep our fingers crossed and see what happens. Please make it work. Yes, it does. It works. Okay, so what is it? What is it anyway? CST stands for Cognitive Stimulation Therapy. It's an engaging program of activity sessions designed to improve well-being and confidence. There are 14 sessions which are delivered 14 sessions which are delivered twice a week. So delivered over 7 weeks, and this is how CST was delivered at the very beginning during the trials, and we try as much as we can to stay as close as we can to how it was delivered, due to the fact that we have some really good evidence to show that this really works. Now, what happens is when we're working in community settings, that very often we're not able to do that. So we're not able to stick to doing twice a week for 14 sessions, and the reasons for that are very often transport, getting people twice a week to somewhere that is essentially only a 1 hour session. So what we've done at Memory Matters is we've done all sorts of iterations where we have created a full day of support. Excuse my phone pinging in there. A full day of support, which is a day club, where in there we provide a whole hour of CST by the book, as would be expected, and that's one way that you can do it. So you can put your CST session in the middle of a social time, or just deliver it once a week, which may not have the same benefits as providing it twice a week. Of course, if you're doing it online, there's no reason, no one has to go anywhere, so we can do 2 sessions a week online. The sessions cover a range of different topics, which I'll go into in a minute, and are led using implicit learning. Now, what this means is that rather than being the controller, if you like, the fact controller or the teacher, you're sitting down with people living with dementia and discovering things together. And this is what it's all about, is sitting beside and discovering, rather than having a very fixed idea about how your session is going to go and standing in front of people like you would do if you were a teacher. So we use curiosity and learning together, and I have to say that between me and the team, we have learnt more from sitting beside people living with dementia than I think I ever learnt at school. Some fantastic stories that are shared, and also lots of really good learning. So it's not just people with dementia who gather something amazing from CST, but also those that are providing the support as well. We encourage participants to function at their maximum capability. So that means we really get to know the people who come along to our groups, and we really take time to find out how we can help them to shine. So, for example, you may have someone in your group who is amazing at mental mathematics. It definitely won't be me, by the way. And that person will be very well placed when doing, for example, physical games, to help with calculating the score, or you may have somebody who is amazing at wielding a pair of scissors, and they may be the person who's really helpful when it comes to cutting things out. So there's always something within all of us that shines through, and that's no different when we're working with people with dementia. We can expect to find that little gem inside every single person in your group that we can use to help them to shine and for them to function at their maximum capability. And I'm sure that you'll agree that if we can do that, we can lift people's moods and their self-esteem and self-worth. The groups are kept small 8 people maximum to enable discussion. And actually we've found that that magic 6 is true, that 6 people in a group is just perfect. But we keep it to 8 because very often we have people who can't come along, or there's sickness. So keeping the groups to 8 seems to work really well. It was developed in 1998, and when the research program began, there were no non-pharmacological interventions that were routinely recommended for people with dementia, and that was because there's a really limited evidence base, and you're not going to get people, medics, etc., referring into something where there's no evidence base. So this was the aim of the team. This is Professor Amy Spector here with Professor Bob Woods, and Martin Orrell, who isn't in the picture as well, was part of the team that conducted a systematic review of literature on the main non-pharmacological therapies. And what they found, hopefully, what they found is that those main pharmacological therapies here had enough evidence base or reason to get put into that big mixing pot there, which then became CST. So I'm going to go very quickly through this because we don't have a huge amount of time. But if you do want to learn more about CST, we do a CST course which you can sign up to. I'll put the link in later in the comments, and you can sign up to do that. We do deliver CST training face-to-face or live on Zoom for your team, which has been very popular, or our recorded sessions, which I recorded whilst we were locked down. So I'm going to very briefly tell you about reality orientation, which was very, very popular for a long time, but really did go out of popularity during the 1980s due to the fact that it just really didn't feel great. When we orientate people to time and place, very often it isn't what somebody living with dementia needs. They may be very happily sat in their chair, happy thinking that they are perhaps in their 40s or even in their 30s, and somebody very kindly comes along to orientate them to their reality, to tell them that actually they're in their 80s, and they're not even at home, they're somewhere else. So as you can imagine, in the 1980s this became very unpopular. I am really rushing through this, so if you've got any questions, do feel free to pop them in the comments. And I can see that Shania's just popped the link as well to Memory Matters in the comments for the cognitive stimulation therapy training. Reminiscence therapy also was put into the mixing pot. At the time, there wasn't a huge amount of evidence around reminiscence therapy, but that is growing now. What we do know about reminiscence is that it is all about identity. When we talk about the past, we're really showing people our identity of who we are. And in reminiscence therapy, what we do when we bring that into CST is use it slightly differently. So rather than going over the same stories again and again, what we're actually doing is finding really interesting ways to use that story as an anchor, but bring the here and now, so that we've got the comparing and contrasting going on. So we may say, for example, if somebody is reminiscing about time in the kitchen with their mum baking cakes, then we'd allow that person to tell their story, and then we would ask questions around, I wonder what they were wearing, or I wonder what you would have been wearing, and I wonder what the difference is between, what we would have worn, or what mum would have worn in the kitchen, with what we wear now. And we start this brilliant conversation around, well, mother always used to wear a pinny, and we don't wear pinnies now. So this idea of using reminiscence therapy is very much about creating stimulation for the brain. So it's not just telling the same stories again and again, because essentially we're just firing the same neurons when we do that. We're not doing anything different in the brain. Whereas when we start to think differently, or ask some questions around it, we have that lovely foundation of that memory and that identity of that person, but we're also able to fire these new neurons. Is what we're trying to do in cognitive stimulation therapy. We're trying to create way more connections. Yeah, as Shania says, please pop questions in the comments if you have any, and I'll do my damnedest to answer them. Validation therapy is in the pot too. I'm not going to go into huge details about this, but just to say that we validate everything that somebody says in CST. So if somebody repeats themselves, we validate it. If somebody tells us a fact that we know that isn't quite true, we validate it, because actually this is all about creating good self-esteem and that quality of life. Multisensory stimulation was also looked at in the evidence base, and it was shown again that using the multisensory, or using more senses than just one, really helps people to and actually in the research they looked at people with challenging behaviour as an example, and how multisensory spaces can really reduce anxiety. Now, you may think that doesn't have much of a correlation, but actually what we do know is that the more senses we use when we have communication with somebody with dementia, then the more chances we have of making those connections. So in CST, we use as many props as we possibly can that are obviously themed to the session that we're providing. So that's something to touch, to feel, to taste even if we can, and to smell. And all of that then went into the pot to create CST. Now, the structure of CST is the thing that's really recognisable. So if you go to a CST session in Cornwall or you go to one in Edinburgh, you're going to experience exactly the same structure in your session. And this is what I love about CST. This structure, this framework is really easy to work with. So the opening, in doing that, we do something called a reality orientation board. And I know that we have done some videos on creating your reality orientation board. So if you follow us on YouTube, you can have a look at, if you Google us, or maybe even Shania, if you're out there, you'll be able to find it on our YouTube channel. But basically, we have done some sessions around, or at least one session on how to do an RO board. When we were during the COVID initially, I put together a session that was about supporting you to create your RO board online. But actually, that online RO board can be used, with a piece of flip chart paper and a pen. The idea is still there, but essentially the board is there to orientate people to time and place when appropriate, thinking about the history of RO, and to remind people sort of where they are, and to talk about the weather. So we can bring in that implicit conversation again, that implicit orientation where we're saying to people, the sun's shining today, the leaves are falling off the trees, I love that crunch under my feet. So we're bringing in the senses, but what I'm doing is I'm keying that person in to understand where we are in the season, without actually putting them on the spot and saying, so Margaret, what season is it? We never put people on the spot in CST. We sing the group song. So the idea of the group song is almost to give the session a theme song. So just like, your brain is keyed in to know that it's time to watch the news, and it must be tea must be in the oven. That's certainly how it was for me as a child. When I heard the theme tune for 6 o'clock news, I knew my food would be out soon. That's how our brains work. So having a song that keys people into knowing what's going to happen next is really helpful. And also we know how much song is enjoyed by every single human. It's hardwired in us, isn't it? And then we would do a word warm-up. So there's lots of different ways to do word warm-ups, and I'm not going to go into that now, but we would be doing a word warm up, and then news and views. So the news and views is where we have chosen a piece of news that we want to discuss that day, and we whip through this opening in very quick time. So that's about 10 minutes for that opening, so there's a lot to do. So there's not a huge amount of time to talk about the news, but enough to get some opinions. And that is what CST is all about, is creating opinions. Thank you, Shania, so much. He's popped in the YouTube clip that I just mentioned in the comments. Next is our main topic. So in this example, it's current affairs. So in this topic, we were creating a newspaper. So getting everybody to come together and create a newspaper. What would we put on the front page? What stories did people want to share? which ties in beautifully actually to our brand new campaign, which is called Visible, Valued, Heard, where we're collecting stories from 6,000 people living with dementia by March 2023. So if you want to get involved in our campaign Visible, Valued, Heard, please do, because we're going to need your help to collect stories. I think we worked out today that we'd have to gather 353 stories a month, and we can't do that on our own. We need you to help us. So if you can help us collect stories from people living with dementia, and CST sessions are a fantastic place to collect those stories, then please do let us know if you can help us. And then the ending is thanking everyone to attend, summarising the discussion and ideas raised. CST is not prescriptive. In other words, if somebody has some great ideas for a session, then we will take that. In fact, we love to create sessions around the people that we have in the group. So this at the ending is a really good time to collect that. Then we sing the group song again, and then we remind them of the time and contents of the next session, and we say our goodbyes. Here's a very, very, very quick whistle-stop tour of the session topics. There are 14, including physical games, sounds, childhood, food, current affairs, faces and scenes, word association, being creative, categorising objects, orientation, using money, number games, word games, and finally the team quiz. But here's the thing, the team quiz, I want to talk about this because we don't do quizzes in CST, and the reason we don't do CST quizzes is because we don't want to put people on the spot. However, what we do is we tweak the team quiz, that's hard to say, tweak the team quiz to ask them questions about their fellow friends in the session. So we might ask a question like, if you had to have a haircut, which one of these members of the group would you trust to cut your hair? Or if you were having a dinner party, which members here would you ask to cook a pavlova? So it's all lots of fun, but it's also about having got to know these people during the sessions. The evidence base for CST is absolutely huge. Well, it's comparable. It's comparable to the anti-dementia drugs. Now, the first trial included 201 people living with dementia in care homes and attending day centres. What they found was that there was significant improvements in the CST group compared to the usual care control group. And the great thing is, because of the way that the trial was done, they can compare it because they used the same the same evaluation tools as was used for the drugs, which is quite a rarity for a psychosocial therapy, which is why this is really exciting. There was a second trial looking at the long-term benefits. Oh my lord, I've lost it. So looking at the long-term benefits, now this is the maintenance sessions, and if you're watching this from the CST facilitators group, it's probable that you are providing maintenance sessions, and the maintenance sessions also had a good outcome, but not as much as the 14 sessions. So what was found here was that the quality of life continued to improve. So absolutely, we need to be making sure that people have maintenance sessions after their first lot of sessions. So a lot of the memory services are providing the shorter 14 sessions. Some of them are providing just 7 or 8, depending on where somebody lives. It'll depend what they have access to. But the really important work is this, the maintenance work. Continuing access to CST is so important. We've seen this in our own projects where people come along, they reap the benefits of coming along to CST, and then it all stops. Just as they've got used to coming along, and you can see the difference in them. So maintenance CST is something that I feel really passionate about, because it doesn't have to be delivered by the NHS. It can be delivered by third sector organisation, by all sorts of different organisations. And I think we've proved that in the work that we've done supporting other people to do that. And that's one of our really big focuses, really, is to help other people do that. And we do that actually by not only teaching people to provide CST, but also we have a fellowship where we actually take a small amount of people. So we've got 4 people on our fellowship at the moment who are learning how not only to provide CST, but also how to build a sustainable organisation which can provide CST in communities. And the way that we see it is that everybody living with dementia should have access to CST. And the way that we do that is to help people through teaching them how to, it's quite a scary thing to jump out there and build your own organisation and your own business, particularly if you've come from a nursing and an occupational therapy background and you've not got any business knowledge, but it's not impossible, and that's what we help people do. Anyway, I have digressed. So cognition was higher in the MCST group, but at this point that it wasn't significantly, there wasn't enough of a difference to say that coming along to CST had made all the difference, but there were significant improvements in quality of life. So there's good evidence for the benefit of continuing CST beyond the initial programme whilst people are still willing and able. So CST definitely should be continued, and we want to encourage as enough as you as possible to come forward and take on the challenge of providing maintenance CST in your community. So if you want information about our fellowship, please do pop it in the comments and we will make sure that we get that to you, and I'd be really happy to jump on a call with you, with Shania, and have a chat about how we can help you do that. So as you can see, it's in the NICE guidelines. Everybody living with dementia should be having CST, and there's no reason why we can't make that happen. Now, what I realise at this point is I can't stop sharing my screen, because if I do, the video stops. And I realised this last time round. So I'm not going to stop sharing my screen. I'm just going to talk to you over this slide. I might just check to see if there's another slide. And if there is a cheeky other slide, I'll go through it. Yes, there is. Okay. Let's have a look at some key principles of CST, just so that you can go away with understanding why it's so awesome. Mental stimulation is a key principle of CST, encouraging new ideas, new thoughts and new associations. This is what makes CST very different from reminiscence or from any of the things that we usually do, because actually what we're trying to do is create those new connections. We want to take people living with dementia through the process of learning. And when people come back to me with, but what's the point? They won't remember. I don't care. We're taking people through the process of learning so that we can get those neurons firing and make new connections in the brain, because that's what CST is all about. And I told a story last week in a seminar about, because I've been telling the story for a really long time, and I'm going to tell it to you now, and then I'm going to tell you why this person poo-pooed my story. So basically, what I always say to people is this, is if we have a forest fire, so imagine a fire burning in the forest, and you have hundreds upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of trees. I thought that this forest fire would take longer to go through the trees because of the amount of trees that were there. So the idea is, this was my idea, was that we are planting trees in front of the fire so that the fire, I guess, burns for longer. And that's how I kind of have always taught CST. However, in this particular seminar, I had a very clever gentleman who told me that actually the denser the forest, the faster the fire will go. So that's completely taken my idea out of the window. But what we did decide is that CST is almost like the brakes, if you like, in the fire. So we can put brakes in to stop that fire burning further. And I guess I can take on that scenario, maybe, and it might work. I still need to play with it. But essentially the idea is that we need to create more connections. We need to create more mass, if you like, in the brain, even though the brain is shrinking and dying. So we're not going to save somebody's brain, but what we're doing is we're creating new connections so that people can function for far longer, and need care at a much later date than they would if they weren't coming to CST groups. So we're stimulating memory by providing triggers to age recall. There's consistency, so you'll see from my from the beginning that we have a beginning, we have a middle and an end, and it's always the same. And we promote implicit recall. So rather than asking people, what is this? Who is this? We don't do that. We do it implicitly. So we ask in a very gentle way, and we don't ask for specific answers that are right or wrong. We also orientate to time and place, but so subtly that people don't even realise that we're doing it. And we always validate by encouraging opinions and not facts. And that has to be the end of my live. It's been 25 minutes, so I've given a really, really long one today because I'm excited about CST and I want you to be excited about CST. We essentially, Memory Matters, want to help you to do as much as you can when it comes to rolling CST out across the UK and the world. And I know that we've got lots of people in this group from different places, from Australia, from America. If we can help you, just reach out and talk to us. So we're here, I'm Laura Walker. Shania James is in the group as well, so you can always reach out to Shania and have a chat with her. And we are here to offer you whatever you need. If we can do it, we will do it for you. So just keep talking to us. And any questions, as I said, it's never too late to stick them in the comments section. Shania and I will be checking. But that is the end. And I'm sorry I couldn't show my face, or maybe that's a good thing. I haven't got any makeup on anyway. Take care, everybody. Bye.